Code Silver wasn't supposed to exist. It wasn't in any manual, wasn't part of any training scenario, wasn't something a military police sergeant was ever supposed to hear whispered through her radio at 2:47 a.m. But when the encrypted message crackled through her earpiece while she stood alone on the east perimeter, everything Corporal Amanda Ross thought she knew about her base and her duty was about to change. Amanda had been walking the same patrol route for 8 months at Fort Henderson, a sprawling installation nestled between rolling hills and dense woodland in Virginia. Her boots knew every crack in the concrete, every shadow cast by the floodlights, every sound that belonged to the night shift. She'd earned her stripes through consistency, attention to detail, and an ability to spot trouble before it spotted her. At 26, she'd already served 2 deployments overseas, but had requested stateside duty after her father's health scare. The transition from combat zones to base security felt like stepping from fire into quiet embers, still military, but manageable. Tonight felt different from the moment she clocked in. The usual radio chatter seemed muted, the security checkpoints unusually sparse. Even Sergeant Williams, who normally cracked jokes during shift change, had handed over the patrol logs with barely a nod. Amanda had attributed it to the late hour and the bone-deep chill of an October night, but as she made her third circuit around the ammunition storage facilities, unease settled in her chest like cold water. The encrypted burst that split through her radio static changed everything. Code Silver active. All MP units stand by for classified directive. Repeat. Code Silver is active. Amanda's hand froze on her flashlight. Code Silver. She'd never heard those words in any briefing, never seen them in any protocol manual. Her military police training covered dozens of emergency codes. Code Red for security breaches, Code Blue for medical emergencies, Code Yellow for lockdowns. But Code Silver was new, foreign, and the way it was delivered through encrypted channels made her pulse quicken. She pressed her radio transmit button, keeping her voice steady and professional. Base Control, this is Unit 7. Request clarification on Code Silver protocol. Silence answered her, stretching longer than any normal radio delay. When the response finally came, it wasn't from the usual dispatch voice she'd grown accustomed to hearing during night shifts. This voice was crisp, authoritative, and unfamiliar. Unit 7, proceed to grid reference Echo 4. Maintain radio silence until contact. You're now operating under classified authority. Amanda's breath caught. Grid reference Echo 4 was deep in the restricted zone, beyond the ammunition storage, past the communications tower, in a section of base she'd been told was off-limits to standard patrol units. Her training screamed protocol, verify orders, confirm authority, follow chain of command. But something in the voice's tone, the weight of words like classified authority, told her this wasn't the time for standard procedures. She clicked her acknowledgement twice, radio protocol for understood, and began moving east, her flashlight beam cutting through darkness that suddenly felt heavier, more oppressive. The familiar sounds of the base at night, distant generators, the hum of echo, for turned out to be a maintenance shed she'd never paid much attention to, set back from the main facilities and partially hidden by a stand of pine trees. As she approached, Amanda noticed details she'd overlooked in previous patrols. The building's windows were darkened with something more substantial than standard blackout curtains, and the lock on the entrance wasn't the typical base-issued hardware. This was military-grade security equipment, the kind used to protect classified materials. Her radio crackled softly. Unit 7, you were expected. Expected? Amanda's training had taught her to trust her instincts. And right now, they were telling her she'd stumbled into something far beyond routine security patrol. She approached the shed's entrance, noting how the gravel around the building had been raked recently, eliminating any trace of footprints or tire tracks. Professional-level operational security. The door opened before she could knock. Colonel Harrison stood in the doorway, a man she recognized from base ceremonies but had never spoken to directly. His presence here, in civilian clothes at nearly 3 a.m., confirmed that whatever Code Silver meant, it operated at the highest levels of base command. Corporal Ross, he said, stepping aside to let her enter. Thank you for responding. Inside, the maintenance shed was nothing like its exterior suggested. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens casting blue light across maps and photographs spread on a central table. Two other figures worked at terminals, one in civilian clothes, another in uniform she didn't recognize. None of them looked up as she entered, their focus absolute and urgent. "Sir," Amanda began, her voice carefully controlled. Colonel Harrison closed the door behind her, engaging multiple locks with practiced efficiency. "Corporal, Code Silver exists for situations that can't wait for traditional briefings. 3 hours ago, our intelligence networks detected unusual activity in this sector. Someone has been conducting unauthorized surveillance of our most sensitive facilities." He gestured to the table, where satellite photographs showed aerial views of Fort Henderson taken from multiple angles. Amanda studied them, noting how certain buildings were circled in red ink, connected by hand-drawn lines that mapped patrol routes, security cameras, and guard rotations. "These photos were intercepted from a dead drop located 2 miles outside our perimeter," Colonel Harrison continued. "Professional quality, recent timestamps, and detailed enough to suggest the surveillance team has been observing us for weeks." Amanda felt the weight of implication settling on her shoulders. "You think there's been a breach, sir?" "We know there's been a breach. What we don't know is how deep it goes." He pointed to one of the photographs, showing her usual patrol route with precise timing notations. "Your patrol pattern, Corporal, documented to the minute. Someone has been watching you specifically." The revelation hit her like cold water. Her routine, her predictable movements, her carefully maintained schedule, all of it had been compromised. Worse, she'd unknowingly become a piece of intelligence for hostile actors operating against her own base. "Sir, what's my role in Code Silver?" Colonel Harrison studied her for a moment, as if weighing her readiness for what came next. "Your patrol route takes you through every section of base where suspicious activity has been reported. You know that one of the civilians at the computer terminals turned toward them. Colonel, we've got movement on the eastern sensor grid. Multiple contacts, coordinated approach." Amanda's military police training kicked into overdrive. Multiple contacts approaching meant this wasn't a single infiltrator or reconnaissance mission. This was an operation in progress. Code Silver hadn't just been activated because surveillance had been detected. It had been activated because whatever the surveillance was preparing for was happening now. Colonel Harrison handed her an earpiece and a small device she didn't recognize. "This is a threat detection scanner," he explained. "It will alert you to electronic surveillance devices, unauthorized communications equipment, or weapon systems that don't belong on this base. We need you to continue your patrol, but now you're hunting." Amanda clipped the device to her belt and fitted the earpiece. The familiar weight of her service weapon felt different now. Not just a tool for maintaining order, but potentially the difference between successful defense and catastrophic breach. "Sir, if there are hostiles operating on base, shouldn't we lock down and call for backup? The surveillance indicates they may have compromised our standard communication channels," Colonel Harrison replied. "Until we know who we can trust and what systems are secure, Code Silver operates with minimal personnel and maximum discretion. You're not just continuing your patrol, Corporal. You're conducting a counterintelligence operation." Amanda nodded, understanding the gravity of her new mission. She wasn't just a military police officer anymore. She was the eyes and ears of a classified operation designed to protect the base from her shoulder. "Corporal, everything you've seen and heard tonight is classified at the highest levels. Code Silver doesn't exist in any official capacity, and neither does this conversation." Amanda met his gaze steadily. "Understood, sir." She slipped back into the night, but now every shadow held potential danger. Every sound required investigation. The scanner on her belt remained silent as she resumed her patrol route, but her awareness had sharpened to a knife's edge. Somewhere in the darkness around Fort Henderson, hostile actors were moving with military precision toward objectives she could only guess at. Her radio whispered softly in her ear, "Unit 7, you're not alone out there. Trust your training, trust your instincts, and remember, Code Silver means the stakes are higher than they appear." Amanda Ross had started her shift thinking she was protecting a secure military installation. Now she understood she was hunting professionals who had turned her own base into a battlefield she couldn't see. But as she moved through the familiar darkness with new purpose, she felt the steady confidence that came with clear mission parameters and the knowledge that failure wasn't an option. Code Silver was active, and she was its instrument of defense. The hunt had begun.